All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. What a busy day! And how do you keep your focus? How do you keep your focus if you're an American citizen? If you do my job, how do you keep everything in fore that needs to be kept in the fore? Because every day it's something else. Now, this healthcare fiasco is a fiasco. Many of us knew it would be, so we're not surprised. But what about the IRS scandal? What about Benghazi? The McLaughlin Group did not the McLaughlin Group, I shouldn't say, but John McLaughlin and Associates did a survey, a poll, and 75% of Americans want answers about Benghazi. And that's not going to go away. I hope it doesn't go away. And I know the IRS scandal's not going away because we have people out there like the American Center for Law and Justice. And joining us right now from that fine organization, the ACLJ, is David French, Senior Counsel. Hey, David, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good to talk to you. All right, so let's talk about there's a piece by Jay Sekulow, who, of course, is very prominent in your organization. He wrote a piece at FoxNews.com about proof of Obama's fingerprints being all over the IRS Tea Party scandal. And as I said earlier, as we were getting you on the phone, this is something we should not let just be overlooked and fade away.
Oh, absolutely. And Jay's exactly right. I mean, if you look, and our new complaint that we have filed, which is an expansion of our lawsuit that we'd already filed on behalf of 41 Tea Party groups in 22 states, what this new lawsuit does is it traces out the political origins of this scandal. And one thing that is fascinating is if you look at the president's public statements, where he called citizens groups like these Tea Party groups threats to democracy, where he hinted that they were run by shadowy political operatives, where he even went on to say that these kinds of groups might have foreign money in them. I mean, we're talking about Tea Party groups in Alabama, like they have foreign money in them. Unbelievable statements. And then you follow what the IRS actually did. What the IRS did is it then began to ask questions of these Tea Party groups that were designed to answer the very questions that the President of the United States was asking. Who's running you? Are there any political operatives behind you? Who's funding you? All of these kinds of questions, in particular the donor lists and the lists in the references to associations you might have, such as what are your family members doing? In the references to associations you might have, such as what are your family members doing? Directly followed the president's public statements.
So the timing is there. I mean, there's a sequence that which shows the link, if you will.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, the president made these statements during the run-up to the 2010 election season, and that is when the persecution really began to kick into a different level. That's when the entire issue was elevated. It's around that time, before that time, but at that time it was definitely elevated to Washington, and in Washington. From the chief counsel's office to Lois Lerner and others were controlling this matter. And that's when you began to see these rounds of very intense questions emerging in 2011, in 2012, following these presidential statements. Now, do we have evidence that President Obama got on some email to Lois Lerner and said, ask these questions? No, we don't have that. But the president's involvement is hiding in plain sight. It's his public statements vilifying these organizations and identifying exactly the questions he wanted answers to.
So, David, how did you modify your complaint?
Well, we did it a couple of things. Number one, we expanded the number of defendants. As we have been investigating this, as Congress has been investigating, as the media has been investigating, we realized this wasn't a scandal that was where just a few people were involved. This was a broad-based scandal in senior leadership in the IRS. So we're adding people like Sarah Hall Ingram, like IRS Counsel, to the lawsuit as the evidence emerges. And the other thing that we're doing is we're realizing that there is an important element here of public education that's necessary. It's not just enough to state the basic facts of viewpoint discrimination and other kinds of unconstitutional actions. We need to tell a narrative. We need to tell the story that contains the evidence that has been uncovered thus far. And I say thus far because we haven't even had discovery yet. But as you know, every week or every couple of weeks, there's a new piece of this puzzle that emerges. And in this complaint, we're putting all those pieces together.
And what is the timetable, for instance, for discovery? Walk some of us through the the process of when what's next and the timetable for it.
Well, here's where I use my old lawyer's joke that the great thing about America is that everyone gets their decade in court.
Yeah.
No, we're trying to move this as quickly as possible. As of right now, after we filed this newest amendment to the lawsuit, the government has 60 days to respond, which is a standard amount of a response. When they do, that's going to really take the battle here to another level, because we expect that the government will try to dismiss this lawsuit. And at that point, we're going to have a round of legal argumentation as to whether any or all of the claims will be dismissed, because the government's probably going to come after this lawsuit with both barrels. The last thing they want is for Jay Sekulow or me or other senior attorneys at ACLJ to put these senior White House officials under oath in depositions, especially when there's, at least in theory, an FBI investigation circling around in the background. So there's a lot of risk here for the IRS. We expect them to try to go after the lawsuit with both barrels, and sometime after the new year, we'll get a real picture as to the start date for discovery.
We're talking to David French, senior counsel at the ACLJ, the American Center for Law and Justice, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Jay makes a great point in that piece that I was talking about earlier, where he said, imagine if this was President Bush, singling out in speeches left-wing groups. And then subsequently, the IRS did what they have done to the right-wing groups here, so-called. The outrage would have been certainly significant.
Oh, we're well past the point where the entire left wing of the political spectrum would have been calling for President Bush's impeachment if the facts were just half as bad as they are for this one. You have the president announcing and targeting specific groups, alleging foreign influence. That sounds McCarthyite, doesn't it? It doesn't just sound McCarthyite. It's straight from that kind of playbook.
Yeah, but you and I know only Ted Cruz is McCarthy, and he looks just like him, and he's the most hated man in America. So it must be Ted Cruz's fault if it is McCarthy.
Everything's Ted Cruz's fault, right?
Yes.
I'm sure. Yeah, it really. At some point, you almost get tired of pointing out the double standards, but we can't get tired of pointing out the double standards. We have to continually say, this is the truth. This is the reality of the political world that we live in, and we have to shame the mainstream media into doing its job.
Well, good luck with that, because I don't know that's even possible. But nonetheless, keep up the good fight. Give my regards to the two Sekulow brothers, and we'll speak to you again as this progresses, David.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.
Take care. David French, ladies and gentlemen. And it is